I have yet to see another mother quite like this one. As her cub tumbled down a precipitous incline, she stood motionless in observation, displaying no indication of aiding her offspring. What explained this seemingly cold-hearted behavior? My comprehension didn't unfold until I witnessed the entire tale. The little bear who had taken a tumble was still attempting to ascend the hill, now faced with a cliff blanketed in snow. The cub showed no hesitation. 1 foot at a time, it persevered toward its mother. Witnessing such resilience, the mother bear's heart nearly broke, and she drew close to extending a helping paw. But just as she moved to do so, the little one fell again, all its previous endeavors undone, escaping a grim fate by the skin of its teeth. It was fortunate that a mound of dirt managed to cushion its fall. Despite this setback, the little bear did not choose to offer surrender because it knew its mother awaited anxiously at the top. Alas, the final 6 feet felt like an unbridgeable expanse. It did not matter how much effort the petite bear put forth, the peak continued to elude it. Seeing her offspring in this dreadful struggle, the maternal bear became fraught with distress, yet she continued to hold back assistance. What prompted such inaction? Her intention was not to be ruthlessly harsh. After all, which mother could apathetically neglect her offspring in peril? Even a ferocious lioness would never cause her cubs harm. Welcome to the Unusual channel. If you are new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to never miss a story. The mother bear's intent was that her cub would forge resilience in the face of hardship. Growing up can prove more merciless than any other path, and parents cannot always be there for their children. The little bear had to learn to navigate adversity independently. This was the very definition of the mother bear's nurturing love. In conclusion, the little bear was triumphant in crossing that formidable gulf, happily reuniting with its mother. Observing this touched a familiar chord within me, thoughts of my own mother surfacing. Even though she was hard on me as I grew up, isn't that just another shade of affection? The swan in my field of vision left the elderly gentleman gobsmacked. He had set out to perform a good deed, yet the swan retaliated in a display of rage, splaying out its wings and flapping them furiously. As it happens, earlier that day, the senior citizen had received a request for assistance from a neighborhood woman. She had discovered a youthful swan caught in a predicament, possibly resulting from an overabundance of offspring. The swan's mother appeared to have overlooked this particular signet, so the woman hoped that the elderly gentleman could lend a helping hand. As the man approached, he noticed the swan pair frolicking joyfully with their other offspring. Upon spotting the arrival of the senior citizen, the swan mother rapidly made her way back to the bank, seemingly understanding that the man was there to help her offspring. The older gentleman had no other option but to delicately approach her while communicating his intentions to save the swan baby. Comprehending his intentions, the swan mother took a step back into the water, leaving him to proceed with the rescue. However, due to the baby swan's cries, she felt the instinct to protect her young from what she assumed was harm. Hence, she aggressively advanced towards the man. Nonetheless, the calm savior kept his focus on the task at hand, which was to extricate the signet stuck rather too firmly for hasty movements. The man advanced cautiously, unaware of the challenges that lay ahead. Suddenly, a swan mother's wing took a swipe at him, leading to a brief struggle between the two. The man quickly maintained a safe distance, being cautious not to interfere with the mother's protective instincts. Possibly realizing the man meant her offspring no harm, the swan mother returned to the water, giving him an unimpeded opportunity to proceed with his rescue mission. With the swan mother now out of the picture, the man was finally able to zero in on helping the young swan. He took his time with the signet inch by inch, moving it towards the barrier. The baby swan cooperated remarkably, making the rescue process a smooth one. In no time, the guy had managed to emancipate the young one from the fence. Seeing her youngling safe, the swan mother experienced a wave of relief. She almost looked as though she would fly over and offer gratitude to the man. He quickly ushered the young swan back to the lake to prevent the mother's agitation from escalating once again. Soon enough, the little swan was back with her mother and siblings, much to their mutual delight. Witnessing the swan family together and content, the man couldn't help but share in their happiness. While it might seem like a minor endeavor for us, for the Swan family, it was nothing less than a life-saving act. Let's shower this compassionate older man with likes. Don't forget to hit the alert bell so you stay up to date. Moving on, here's an equally heartwarming story about two wolf pups rescued at a tender age, who played a significant role in a completely different scenario. Kadia, a little girl, lost her mother at an early age, and though she yearned for information regarding her entity, those around her remained silent on the topic. Her custodial grandmother vaguely explained that her mother had flown to heaven and had not yet come back, even though the grandmother wished to take the girl to school with the rest of the village children. Despite her financial predicament and physical limitations, at the tender age of 15, Kadia was faced with the loss of her grandmother due to a sudden cardiac arrest. This left her on her own, and she made the choice to move in with an aunt. She held a burning desire to unravel the mystery of her mother's vanishing by seeking the truth from her aunt. Yet her aunt, choosing not to share the truth, told Kadia her mother would not be returning and advised her to let go of her memories. She disapproved of Kadia's desire to get an education, instead wishing for Kadia to become a domestic help at her residence. Kadia took on the role of a diligent worker in her aunt's home, despite its initial challenges. As time rolled on, her aunt came to observe and appreciate her vivacious, bright, and compassionate nature, eventually developing sympathy for her. Yet this did not alleviate Kadia's workload at home that included brushing out the animal shelter, maintaining the house and yard, doing the laundry, and managing the kitchen. Often exhausted, Kadia found little opportunity to interact with anyone. At times, she would find solace in the neighboring woods where she could be herself at ease. Her aunt, who lived her life on her own terms, chose to remain single, disliking male dominance, cherishing her independence, and prioritizing her freedom over financial security and presence. Every morning, Kadia would wake up at the crack of dawn, venturing into the woods to gather fungi and fruits, making sure to return before her aunt awakened. Once she would accumulate a significant bounty, she would sneak off to the local market and sell them, earning a bit of money. The villagers, charmed by her quiet grace and beauty, were more than happy to buy her goods. This income, albeit small, was tucked away in a tiny bag beneath her sleeping place. Observing her aunt in moments of financial stress, Kadia would discreetly give her some of her saved earnings. When questioned about the source, Kadia chose to remain silent. One day, as per her usual routine, Kadia was in the forest picking fruits and mushrooms when an unfamiliar noise grabbed her attention. With a tight grip on her basket, she scanned her surroundings, a wave of fear washing over her. She bravely made her way towards the source of the noise, only to find a concealed den housing a wolf with her cubs engaged in playful activities. Sensing potential danger, Kadia decided it best to leave immediately. However, she soon identified that the mother and one of her infants were no more. Merely two juvenile puppies lingered, pacing around their mother, unaware of her demise. The young lady was filled with sorrow and contemplated assisting the tiny wolves, although she recalled the clause her aunt had imposed, prohibiting her from inviting them into their abode. Afterwards, she cradled the puppies, offering them fruits that were present in her basket. She persistently contemplated a plan that would lend assistance to them. Kadia brought the delicate pups to Uncle Nakadam, an esteemed huntsman within their community. This gentleman was renowned for his kindness and his deep-seated love for the animal kingdom. Therefore, it was certain that the pups would be secure under his watch. Aligned with her anticipations, the huntsman welcomed her interface and was elated upon the sight of the little wolves. The gentleman procured provisions for the creatures, followed by conducting a health check on them. After hearing the saga from Kadia about her discovery of the pups, the man asked her to guide him to the specific location. Upon arrival, he evaluated the lifeless mother wolf, who lay motionless beside her infant, concluding that she was a victim of shooting. Concerning the pup beside her, he could have potentially passed away due to malnutrition or illness. Ill health resulting from lack of caregiving post his mother's demise. Kadia pleaded Uncle Nicodem to permit the pups to stay in his residence until they become self-sustained. She pledged her commitment in assisting in their upbringing and bringing food daily. Nicodem was moved by her passion and agreed that the puppies would receive proper care in his dwelling. Nicodem hosted 2 wolves and endorsed Katia's selection of names for them, Karshan and Marjan. Over time, the puppies showcased an enhancement in their condition. They seemed energetic, lively, and reciprocated affectionately to Kadia's daily visits to play and feed them. Nicodem spent considerable time with the puppies and Kadia, towards whom he harbored affection akin to a granddaughter. He empathized with her life's trials and tribulations, utilizing her frequent visits to groom her literacy skills by offering lessons on reading and writing. Kadia displayed excellent intellect, enabling her to grasp these lessons swiftly, impressing Nicodem. Within months, Kadia was erudite in writing without errors and attempted to read newspapers and mini-tales. The 15-year-old girl and the 2 little wolves had eventually become a closely knit family. Everyone relished their moments at Uncle Nicodem's abode. Kadia started bringing the gathered mushrooms and fruits to Uncle Nicodem's residence, sharing them with her newfound companions. As the days passed, her aunt took note that the girl no longer fed her, nor brought the fruits back home, instigating her anger. She was livid at the girl and threatened to evict her. However, Kadia no longer feared her aunt as she used to, and instead found her statements amusing. The aunt, noticing the transformation in her niece's demeanor, decided to tail her one day to unearth her whereabouts. Upon discovering that Kadia visited Uncle Nicodem, she sternly warned him not to allow Kadia into his dwelling and threatened to accuse him of misconduct. The girl was perplexed by her aunt's overreaction towards Uncle Nicodem, and as time passed, she started to push her aunt into revealing why she forbade her from meeting him. Eventually, the aunt confessed that Uncle Nicodem was the father of her deceased father, her grandfather who had served in the Russian army. She admitted that he was ignorant of having a granddaughter because he had searched for her, but hadn't had any luck. Stunned by the revelation, Kadia confided in Uncle Nicodem, sharing her aunt's story. It proved to be accurate. Uncle Nicodem was thrilled by the news and her granddaughter to relocate to his dwelling and become a part of his family. Kadia enthusiastically agreed, reveling in her life with her grandfather and the magnificent creatures, the wolves, Karshan and Marjan, who had matured into adult wolves. Kadia and her grandfather considered them pets. The duo began venturing into the woods to hunt rabbits. With time, their trips to the woods became prolonged as they gradually acclimated to nature. One day when Grandpa Nicodem was not at home, Kadia found herself all alone. Kadia then heard a knock on the door. Opening it, she saw 3 distressed men. Instantly, she slammed the door, causing the loathsome men, who had been entranced by her beauty, to plot to forcefully enter the house and abduct her. Suddenly, she heard loud thumping on the door, realizing that the men were attempting to break it. Consequently, she sneaked out the window and broke into a run through the woods, observed closely by the 3 men tailing her. As the story goes, there was an aunt who visited her sister's abode, the house of old man Nicodem. The purpose of her visit was to convince her sister to return to her home. Upon reaching, she noticed the signs of forced entry on the door. Simultaneously, Kadia was darting through the forest when she unexpectedly encountered Karshan and Marjan. She halted, drawing nearer to them, and held them close, gasping for breath. She wanted to warn them to escape, as dangerous persons were in pursuit of her. However, the wolves decided to stick with her, displaying affection towards her, indicating they missed her a great deal. Suddenly, the 3 ruffians appeared, attempting to approach Kadia. But Karshan and Marjan leaped into action, keeping the menacing men at a safe distance from Kadia. They managed to corner the intruders near old man Nicodem's dwelling, astonishing the aunt with their heroics. The pair of wolves held their ground while the culprits were apprehended until law enforcement arrived. This remarkable incident made the aunt realize that Kadia was secure in her current location with her grandfather and the 2 protective wolves. Consequently, she ceased to insist on taking Kadia back with her. Instead, she made sure to visit her sister's house to ensure Kadia's safety. Now let's talk about an old hamlet right at the base of a mountain. This village is home to nearly 30 families, including an elderly lady, Mrs. Wong. This year, Mrs. Wong celebrates her 60th birthday. She is surprisingly fit for her age and displays an impressive walking pace, making it hard to believe she is indeed 60. Due to her knowledge of medicinal practices, the villagers seek her advice when they are feeling unwell or are in labor. Her expertise and helpful nature make her a respected figure, and the only medical person in the village. One fine day, Mrs. Wong was sorting her herbs at her homestead and noticed she was out of a specific herb. Since the day had beautiful weather, she decided to collect some herbs from the mountain. She strapped a basket to her back and started her ascent. She frequently collected herbs, so she knew exactly where to find the one she was missing. It didn't take long to find the herb, and to maximize her trip, she collected additional varieties. When her basket was brimming with herbs, she started her journey back home, though the evening was still young. While returning, she heard a sorrowful howl, which she immediately recognized as a wolf since she's well acquainted with the mountains. The wolf sounds made her nervous and she quickened her pace. To her astonishment, the wolf emerged in front of her. This wild wolf was sprawled on the grass, bleeding. Surveying the situation, she realized the wolf posed no imminent threat as he laid hurt. The injured wolf managed to find her and growled in pain. From the distended abdomen of the wolf and the blood splattered on the ground, she could tell this wolf had endured a challenging birth. Being a healthcare worker, she valued each life and refused to abandon anyone. It was a violation of her professional code to desert a patient, whether the patient is a human or an animal. Wong cautiously approached the female wolf. The wolf growled aggressively as Wong approached cautiously. Though the wolf was unable to attack her, its growling was still born on a wave of ferocity. Wong slowly and cautiously approached, calming the wolf, expressing, "Don't fear, I'm here to assist." Perhaps the she-wolf sensed her goodwill and ceased its loud protests. Wong positioned herself next to the wolf and tentatively reached to pet her. The wolf did not seem to appreciate the gesture. However, whenever Wong attempted to stroke her, it bared its teeth in caution. If Wong had any intention to harm her, the she-wolf would fight back resolutely. In this critical moment, Wong thought about the medicine she had on hand. It was medicine designed for women experiencing severe bleeding post-delivery. Though uncertain about its effects on animals, she knew this was her only option. She presented the medication to the wolf, assuring her, "This can help you. Simply swallow it." The wolf seemed to lose its antagonism towards her, perhaps sensing Wong could be its savior. As Wong held the pill close to her mouth, the wolf swallowed. A moment later, the wolf slowly began regaining some strength, and its eyes seemed to regain some clarity. Suddenly, her legs twitched sporadically, and she successfully gave birth to 4 cubs. The wolf, having just given birth, was quite frail and in immediate need of nutrition. However, Wong did not have any available food with her. Glancing at the sky, she noticed dusk was encroaching. Her home wasn't far from the woods. Speaking to the wolf, she said, "Wait here for me. I'll head home quickly to fetch something for you to eat. You need nourishment at the moment." She picked up her basket and headed home, intending to make it there before the onset of total darkness. She made it home swiftly and retrieved a portion of pork from her kitchen, left from the previous day's patient visit. Assessing the meat, she realized it wasn't sufficient. Hence, she hurriedly visited the hunter's place. Arriving there, she requested, "Lou, I need some meat, a substantial amount." The hunter, with a grin, responded, "Sure thing, what's the occasion? You usually decline my offered meat." Mrs. Wong had no wish to get into details, so she simply replied, "I've developed an inclination for meat recently." Lou promptly gave her a large portion of meat. Just as she was about to pay, he halted her, declaring as he grinned, "Mrs. Wong, there's no need for payment. You're the village's only doctor. We owe you for treating us. Consider the meat our gratitude gift." Upon hearing Lou's refusal to accept her money, Mrs. Wong had no choice but to repocket her funds. She nodded her assent, promising to extend her aid as much as she could. After her declaration, she returned to her residence, which was shrouded in darkness. Initiating her quest under the illumination of a flashlight, she scaled the mountain carrying chunks of meat with her. She found the wolf exactly where she left it, still tending to its offspring. On seeing Mrs. Wong, the wolf emitted a joyful sound, and if it hadn't been weakened, perhaps it would have circled her in greeting. Mrs. Wong squatted in front of the animal, gently caressed its head and set out the chunks of meat for it. Assuring the wolf, she said, "Eat this, it should be enough. This is all I can manage. You have to keep fighting." The wolf, seemingly understanding her words, emitted a low, appreciative howl. Once Mrs. Wong had left, the wolf consumed the meat, managing to pull through the trying times. Mrs. Wong saw this act as nothing beyond her duty of a lifelong healer. Little did she expect the wolf to later save her life. On another day, Mrs. Wong was found at her residence, quelling over a pot of medicinal herbs. Given her advancing age, she easily succumbed to fatigue. The herbs required a prolonged cooking time, and she decided to recline and rest a while. Her rest deepened into a peaceful sleep. Her comfortable slumber was broken by a fit of choking from smoke. She woke up to a fire and, attempting to flee, found her path blocked by a collapsed beam from the roof. A sense of calm resolution washed over her. She was content with the life she led and conceded to her fate. The raging fire caught the attention of her fellow villagers. However, the fire was so robust that not a soul could enter. Just as anxiety reached its peak, the distinct howl of a wolf was heard, followed by a wolf darting into the burning house. Mrs. Wong, on the brink of losing consciousness due to smoke inhalation, caught sight of the wolf. Struggling to comprehend if it was a mirage or reality, she fell into unconsciousness. The wolf then made its way over and dragged her outside. Villagers, who only then understood that the courageous animal was the wolf, watched in amazement. It was the very same wolf that Mrs. Wong had saved, almost as if it was waiting for an opportunity to repay her kindness. On seeing the flaming house surrounded by a worried crowd, and the lack of Mrs. Wong among them, it sprang into action. After successfully dragging Mrs. Wong out, a few flames had caught on to them. Crying out from the pain, a villager doused them with a hose. Mrs. Wong was taken to a neighbor's residence. Although she was unconscious due to smoke inhalation, she didn't have any physical injuries and only needed rest. The wolf, on the other hand, suffered from singed fur, with patches of its coat severely damaged. Having saved Mrs. Wong, the wolf remained close by her side. In the village, everyone recognized the wolf had saved Wong, so they didn't chase it away. The villagers were too afraid to approach, because the wolf would become aggressive if anyone tried to approach too close. Soon enough, Wong regained consciousness. Seeing the wolf lying next to her bed, she realized she hadn't been dreaming. The wolf had indeed saved her life. Recognizing it as the same one she had once helped, she was filled with emotion. Noticing the wolf's burnt skin, Wong was overcome with tears. She hadn't foreseen this selfless act of rescue from the animal. Luckily, under Wong's careful nursing, the female wolf eventually recovered. From then on, an unspoken bond formed between the two. The wolf would roam the mountains during the day, hunting for food, and at night she would guard Wong's dwelling. Every time Wong ventured into the mountains to gather medicinal herbs, the wolf would be there, ensuring she wouldn't be attacked by any wild beasts. Out of gratitude, the wolf was willing to offer its life in return for its healer's kindness. There's a certain purity in the relationship between humans and animals. A simple quid pro quo. I show you kindness, you show me kindness. It emphasizes the need for us to maintain harmonious relationships with our fellow creatures. That's the end of this story. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales like these. See you in the next one.